That guy was lucky. If it weren't for that helicopter, he probably wouldn't make it to the hospital in time. There you go, Dick. We've been looking for him for 3 days. We finally found him before he could make any more mistakes. Unfortunately, a lot of other people aren't that lucky. It seems like everybody in the country is rediscovering the outdoors, and that's good, but they're not doing their homework. And they're not prepared for the 101 things that can go wrong out here. Some don't even realize things can go wrong. But when they do, our phones ring. Ignorance. Hundreds of cases. Usually they hinge on a simple mistake. Lack of water, no matches, ignorance of the weather, improper clothing. Mistakes as varied as the people who make them. Brad Flint was on vacation. He ran the family business and decided to take a few days to do a little fishing up north. There's nothing finer than trying a new trout stream during Indian summer. The days are warm and the nights are cool. The aspens up there in that country shimmer like gold. Hard to believe it's a dangerous time. It's warm when the sun is out, but if the sun goes behind a cloud, it can cool off pretty fast. The warmth has gone from the ground and winter is not that far off. He tried a hole or two and then he moved upstream. He fished all morning and into the afternoon. In all, he was probably 3 miles from the truck. Finally, he found the kind of hole he was looking for. It was dark and deep. It was the kind of water that holds big trout. The kind of spot you don't ever forget. The air was 55 degrees, but the water was a bone-chilling 37. It took his breath away and put him in a mild form of shock that sent a surge of adrenaline through his body. In short, he began to run on instinct, and his instincts told him to get back to the truck. Cold as he was getting, he was gradually losing the ability to know what was happening to him. And what was happening was far more serious than it seemed. He came to a beaver pond he'd fished on the way up, and that's where his luck ran out. One stream came into it, but 2 went out. He took the wrong stream and headed off away from the truck into 10,000 acres of prime national wilderness. By far, the #1 killer in the outdoors is hypothermia. Exposure, they call it sometimes. It's sneaky, but it's simple. Your body just cools off too much. 40 minutes after the fall, and Brad's temperature was probably 95 degrees, the same as a fever of 102, but in reverse. First, you begin to shiver violently. You become confused. Although wet, the boots were actually keeping Brad's legs warm. He may have thought they were making him stumble, but in fact, his muscles were stiffening up, and the wind was drawing off even more of his body heat. He was quickly losing his best defense, the ability to think. Instinct was all he had left, and it failed him. It failed to tell him that what he needed was in his pack, hot coffee and matches. His body began to shut down.
Hey! Over here! Hey, come on over here. We got the heater in the truck. We'll warm you up.
Hey.
This truck here, we can get you out. Hey, we'll give you a ride. Hey. Warm in here, too.
More than 2 hours had passed, and his inner body temperature was probably down to 85 degrees. If he lit a fire when he began to shiver, he might be back fishing by now. As it was, he couldn't.
You there! Over here! That's it!
The blood being pumped through his heart amounted to ice water. There was probably nothing anybody could do, even if they had found him within the next 5 hours. As a matter of fact, nobody did find Brad Flint for 5 days. He was found carrying the things he needed to survive: dry matches and a thermos full of coffee. I know it sounds incredible, but it happens all the time. What most people don't realize about hypothermia is that it affects the mind as much as the body. The only symptom you'll consciously recognize is the first one, violent shivering. After that, you won't even know what hit you. Let's say you're here, shivering uncontrollably. A few hundred yards away, you think you see some shelter. Don't try for it. Stay right here. Build a fire. Drink something hot. Somehow, get warm and get dry. Believe me, in the time it takes you to get there, your rational ability could be gone and you could go right past it. It happens that fast. So how do you prevent hypothermia? The easiest way is to wear wool clothing. Wool insulates even when it's wet. Blue jeans may be stylish, but they're made of cotton. And when cotton gets wet, it no longer insulates. And that can kill you. Always carry matches in some sort of waterproof container. It's good to know ways of building a fire without matches, but it's easier to carry them. A fire out here can save your life. Actually, hypothermia is not necessarily a cold weather killer at all. Most cases occur on days between 30 and 50 degrees. And you don't have to fall into a stream or get rained on either. Perspiration and a little wind can be enough to set it off. I know it takes discipline to sit down and build a fire when the sun is shining. But out here, discipline is a skill that can save your life. Hypothermia kills over 1,000 people every year. And many of those people would be alive today if they had just known what you know right now. The American West. Its size, its rugged beauty, and its opportunities drew the pioneers out here, and it still draws people. But the explorers of today, even though they bring more luggage, may not be as well equipped as their predecessors. They arrive in insulated, air-conditioned castles on wheels. Their sense of security is as complete as it is unfounded. Late fall, high country. And Blair Cheever and his family have found the perfect parking place, right in the heart of the American West.
All right, I just about got this counter pin out. I think they'd have instructions for this thing.
Blair Cheever, optical engineer, 34 years old. His wife, Peggy, 32.
It's not even cooking at all. It's just laying there.
Frankie is 10, a good age to see Indian country. And Margot, the family Springer Spaniel. She may be the only one at home in the outdoors.
Come on, Margot. Come on, Margot.
They decided to hike to the top of the mountain behind their campsite.
Okay.
Ready for that big hike, Frankie?
Here's the wine. Red wine.
No, I got
Some cheese.
corkscrew.
I wish I had some cheddar.
I'll get some,
Here,
how about
cigarettes.
cigarettes?
Here. Do you have an extra pack in your pocket?
Yeah.
Have you got your Snickers? Yeah.
They packed some wine, some suntan lotion, a Frisbee, a magazine or two, and nothing else.
Where's Margot?
Margot. 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 Margot.
Come on, Margot. Margot.
I found her. I found Margot. I found her.
They started to get ready about 10:30 in the morning, but they lost nearly an hour looking for Margot. They had no idea of the weather forecast, and they didn't have a map or a compass. What looked like 5 miles would be more like 15 because of some pretty rough terrain. A good hiker would take nearly all day to cover the same ground. They were about as fit as the average American, and that's just not fit enough.
John,
What?
are you sure we're going the right way?
We're going the right way. We're going up. Look, it's right over there.
In short, the Cheevers were out on the end of a very long limb.
That path's right up to those trees.
But it doesn't
Right
seem like we're getting any closer.
Well, we got to be getting closer. Well, see, we're going to come out of this any minute here, and then,
Ouch!
Peggy began to realize that they might have misjudged their little outing, but Blair, like too many other men, just took it as a challenge. What they needed was some good advice and the sense to accept
we're
it.
going in the right direction. Hey, looks like we got some company here.
Oh, ask him if this is the right way.
Hi. Hello there.
Hey, how are you?
You just coming down from up there?
Yeah, we sure are.
Well, that's where we're headed.
Clear up to the top, huh?
That's right.
We just came from there.
That's a
long ways up there.
Oh, are we going the right way?
Yeah, you
sure
sure
are.
are. Just stay right on the trail. You go right up there to the left, and you'll end up right on top.
Oh,
Doesn't look too much further.
It's a long ways up there yet.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Do you have any extra clothes with you? It looks...
No, we're...
Something's moving in here. The weather could change real fast, you know.
Well, it was sunny just a minute ago.
We
How
just
about
came
a
up for a
raincoat,
picnic, didn't we?
Yeah.
This weather changes fast. It could blow over. It could stay here for hours. You have no way of knowing.
Looks to me like it'll blow over, though.
Yeah. Keep your fingers crossed, I guess, huh?
How's that little guy doing there?
What do you mean by little guy?
He's doing fine. He's a real trooper.
Okay.
We'll be all right. Don't worry about it.
All right. Well, good luck to you, folks. We'll see ya.
So long.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Let's go.
John, I hope you know what you're doing.
Don't
Late that
worry.
afternoon, the temperature dropped 25 degrees in 20 minutes, and 30 degrees more in the next hour. It snowed nearly 3 feet through the night, and the wind was a solid 35 miles per hour. An average October storm in the mountains. That happened not too far from here. We'd been searching for 2 days when I spotted the dog. I thought we were in luck, but as it turned out, the dog was the only one alive. As far as I'm concerned, that guy killed his family through his ignorance and his male ego. Hiking is not a competitive sport. And just because somebody else can do something doesn't mean that you should be able to do it. And if you can't, it doesn't mean that you're any less of a man. All of this is bigger than you or me, and you can't control it. Especially the weather. There are no thermostats out here, and the weather can become fierce beyond belief. Know the local weather. Dress for what the weather is, but pack for the possibilities. And in that pack should be survival gear. Now, a survival kit is a very personal thing, but it should serve 3 basic functions: shelter construction, fire building, and signaling. In mine, I carry matches in a waterproof container, a sharp knife, 10 feet or so of rope, material to build a windbreak, a glass mirror for signaling aircraft, and a whistle for signaling ground search parties. Add to that a standard first aid kit. But far and away, the most important piece of survival gear you'll ever carry are your brains. Use them. Think. There's no trick to survival. It's a matter of common sense and good judgment.
Hey, what about that really good-looking friend of Cindy's, man? I keep asking you to set me up with her. You know, we only got 4 beers left. That's 3 six-packs we've gone through.
Larry Borg and Skip Thomason live in a town which is pretty much an oasis in the
Will you
desert.
watch out?
They work together, and they went in on a 4-wheeler not too long ago.
Come on, slow down
They
now,
treated
huh?
it like a toy.
Whoa, watch out! Whoa. Hey, relax. A quick shift into super low, and we'll be out of here in no time. Great. All right, so she's not perfect. Let's figure out.
Midday in July, the desert is about 120 degrees. Looks empty and godforsaken. But there are lizards, snakes, jackrabbits, and 100 kinds of insects living out there. But you never find them in the midday heat. Occasionally, you do find the human. Working in desert heat of 120 degrees costs about 2 quarts of water every hour. And as it evaporates, the blood gets thicker. Circulation slows, and efficiency drops as much as 50%. Larry Borg and Skip Thomason have what you call a situation.
All right, try it now. We're not getting anywhere. Oh, come on, this is crazy.
The beer was not really replacing the lost fluid. In fact, the alcohol was affecting their blood, lowering their efficiency even more.
I give up.
When blood chemistry changes, the mind can become less than dependable.
Well, I guess we should get going.
Get going. Where?
Where? We gotta walk out of here and get some help.
I don't think we should do that.
What? And you want to stay here overnight? We got no food, no water.
I just think we should stay here for as long as it takes for someone to find us.
You crazy? Who's gonna find us? Did you tell anyone we were out here?
No.
Well, neither did I. Suppose we probably should have. Oh, we didn't.
Look, if we're not home tonight, I know my mom. She scares easy. She'll call the cops and send someone out to find us.
Oh, man, you've been watching too much TV. All right, look, what's the big deal here? We walk out, we follow the riverbed. It can't be more than 2 miles to the road. Are you coming?
No. And I don't think
Forget it. I'm going myself.
It's a lot further than 2 miles, Larry.
Larry, wait till morning.
A moment of decision. We face them every day, but in the outdoors, under extreme conditions, the choice could be a matter of survival. The human body is remarkable. It's tough and resilient. Give it some rest and shelter, and it can usually make emergency repairs.
Albuquerque Tower, I'm looking down here, I got a mirror flashing out here. It may be an emergency.
Larry Borg was found face down on the desert floor. He had 2nd and 3rd degree burns over 40% of his body. His lung and brain cavities were saturated with fluid. Cause of death, heart failure. He was 3 miles from the truck. He still had 9 miles to go.
Water. It's the main thing when it comes to deserts. Always carry more water than you'll ever need. But if anything goes wrong, where do you find it? There's a lot of talk about digging into dry stream beds or cutting into plants, but you can't count on it. The one thing you can count on is a solar still. It's a simple thing. It literally creates water out of thin air, and it's easy to build. Just dig a hole a couple of feet across by a couple of feet deep. Place a container in the center of the hole. Cover the hole with plastic. If there's vegetation available, put that in the hole too. Then weight down the center of the plastic and seal the edges with sand. The heat from the sun creates water vapor in the hole, which condenses on the plastic and drips into the container. The vegetation speeds up the process. One still will provide between 1 and 3 quarts of water every 24 hours. That's not enough to keep you alive, so it's important to build 3 or 4 separate stills. But don't build the stills or do any other kind of work during the heat of the day. You'll use up more water than the stills can produce. Stay out of the sun, find some shade. Always wear a hat. Lay low until nightfall before you do any work. Chances are you came into the desert in a vehicle. It's a machine and it can break down. If it does, stay with it. Never try to walk out of the desert. We'll find you. if you told somebody where you were going. Another thing, no alcohol. Alcohol is no substitute for water. Save the drink for the celebration when we find you. You'll have cause to celebrate because you will have survived the most hostile environment on the face of the earth. 10 p.m., the night before the opening day of deer season. The boys have been coming up to their cabin for 8 years or more, 1 week a year. It's been a good time.
You going after that same buck again this year?
I'll be ready for him this year.
Cal Gresham talks a good hunt, but he's never shot a deer. Harry Nedick does the cooking because nobody else wants to. Tonight's his specialty, franks and beans. Bob Storty manages to win enough in poker every year to buy the drinks. And Raymond Colda spends the week telling old jokes.
Ray, you all set?
I'm fine.
This year, like every year, they got a good early start. Cal and Ray went down along the river into the flats, and Bob and Harry went up on the high ground. They decided to make a loop and see if the deer had been moving in the bad weather. Sure enough, within a mile, Bob picked up the trail of what looked like a large buck. The deer had been running. It was alone, so it probably wouldn't go far. He forgot about circling back to meet Harry. There was a box of shells riding on the first deer. And then came the snow, and with it, trouble. He had visions of making the kill and getting back to the cabin with plenty of day left to dress it out. He covered a mile, then 2, then 3. The deer shifted directions once, then again. Another couple of inches of snow had fallen by then. He was beginning to have a hard time staying on the trail. A couple of times he lost it, and then picked it up again. He'd been in this area before, but now nothing looked familiar. It made him slightly uneasy. He remembered Harry. Maybe he ought to hook up with him and start over. That deer had wandered all over the map. What bothered him most was that not only had he lost the deer tracks, he'd lost his own. The wind had finished what the snow had started, and the tracks were gone. Because the land was flat, there were no landmarks to go by. But he went on, following his sense of direction. He figured he must be close. Harry! But there was no Harry. Harry! Like all of us, he started to make things worse for himself. His mind thought about what might be instead of what was.
8 years in the same patch of woods, and you still don't know your way around. Hard to believe.
What do you want us to do, Bob? Call out the state police?
He could have stopped. He could have made a fire. He could have admitted he was lost, and he should have. There were 10 things he might have done, and he picked the worst one. Harry! Bob was lost and he was tired. He was cold and he was hungry. He was angry, frustrated, and most of all, he was scared. He was pumping out adrenaline by the quart. He wanted to be warm. He wanted to be back home. He wanted out. Full-blown panic. Bob had stepped back into the wild. Fear ruled him. Ancient, unspeakable fear. Fear of everything. Fear even of something that could save him.
He'd been lost 6 hours. He'd been running for 2 hours. He had used up his resources. He was going no further. Bob was found by his buddies and a search team just after midnight. He was only a few hundred yards from a logging road. They pried him from around the tree and took him to the local hospital, where doctors removed 2 fingers and 4 toes because of frostbite. Panic. It's hard to believe unless you've seen it. It doesn't seem possible that a person can come completely apart, but that's exactly what happens. Anybody can panic. Anybody can get lost. If you say you can't, you're already in trouble. So always tell somebody where you're going. Learn to use a map and a compass so you'll know where you're going. But if you get lost, what do? First and most important, admit it. I am lost. Those 3 little words may save your life because it means that you've begun to think rationally. Next, find some shelter. Sit down and stay put. And then build a fire. I went through our cases once, and it struck me how many people could have saved themselves just by lighting a fire. First, it gets you warm. Second, it acts as a signal to the people who are looking for you. And third, and very important, it becomes a companion. A big part of the terror in being lost comes from being alone. Light a fire, and you have a friend beside you. What a remarkable discovery fire was. It certainly helped early man rise above the rest of the animal world. In fact, our earliest ancestors survived very well in the wilderness. And you and I still have those same abilities. But come into the wilderness prepared. Take it seriously. Read about it, study it, and then enjoy it for the rest of your life.